Next, I journeyed to Olympic National Park. The park and Olympic National Forest occupy a large part of Washington's Olympic Peninsula. I camped at Mora Campground, a plain but pleasant place. It was 2 miles to the Pacific Ocean by foot or by vehicle. Rialto Beach is a big, rugged, breathtaking beach, a fine example of the Pacific Northwest. Hiking along this mysterious coastline is both alluring and treacherous. Large tree trunks up to 6 feet in diameter and weighing tons have been tossed up to a dense forest line by violent Pacific storms. High tide brings waves crashing into these giants and can trap a hiker. It's important to get a tide table and become familiar with the tides before venturing out. At times, rock outcrops called sea stacks line the beach. Sea stacks were once part of the shore, but have been isolated by the sea, which continuously gnaws away softer rocks. On the Pacific coast, there are 2 high tides and 2 low tides roughly every 25 hours. Here's a shot with the tide coming in and fairly high. Now here's a shot at low tide of the sea stack. The tunnel now overshadows tide pools and the marine life within. The rainy season had started early this fall. The days had a haunting gray melancholy about them. When the sun did make an appearance, it was glorious. I love the West Coast sunset. I get a special thrill watching the sun set into the sea. I still get a thrill when a marine layer forms late and blocks the sun dipping into the water. I traveled south in the park to the Claylock Campground, where I managed to snag a site with a view. This is the only campground in the park that takes reservations. A limited number of sites with views like this is probably the reason why. The beach here was similar but different from Rialto. There were gray skies the first day I got here, and then it rained on and off for a couple days. I decided if it was going to rain, I might as well go into the Hoh rainforest within the park. The rainforest was as advertised. I spent 85 hours here, and it rained 84 of them. All the rain was giving me the blues. Eventually, I climbed into my rain gear, covered my camera, and hit the trails. The Hoh is one of the largest temperate rainforests in the world. It is mostly coniferous with a broadleaf understory. The forest consists of many shades of green, and so do the streams. Storms from the Pacific Ocean drop over 150 inches of rain a year here. This is a blowdown. Notice the lack of a taproot. With so much rain, there is no need for one. Roots develop horizontally, which makes trees vulnerable to high winds from winter storms. Because of the densely covered forest floor, many seedlings germinate on fallen, decaying trees, known as nurse logs. Competition is tough here, too. The first roots to touch ground are the seedlings that survive and thrive. Some nurse logs produce a number of trees all in a line called a colonnade. Hundreds of years later, the nurse log totally decays and leaves trees with trunks like these. In the Pacific Northwest, they say, if you can't go out in the rain and have fun, you're not going to have much fun. When I got back to camp, there were 2 Roosevelt elk grazing across the Hoh River. I was the only one in the campground, and in the morning I awoke to a clicking sound accompanied by high-pitched squeals. I presumed that these were the same bulls I had seen the previous evening, but I was unsure what all the pushing and shoving was all about. Traditionally, male elk fight for female elk. Alpha bulls build up harems of cows, and then in turn have to defend their territory when other bulls want to move in on their women. But there were no cows in sight, and I can assure you they weren't fighting over my affections. When the bull on the right didn't gore the other bull at this opportunity, I knew they were only playing. These two are perhaps cousins, maybe even brothers. They probably grew up together in a large herd from which they were both banished. When young males begin to take notice of females, the alpha bull takes notice. He chases the young bulls away from the rest of the herd for good. There were some waterfalls in the park and some enchanted trails to get you there. The trail to Windermere Falls had a whimsical feel about it as it scaled a mountainside. The trail to Solduck Falls went through a mature lowland forest that seemed to be right out of a Grimm's fairy tale. I'll be right back with more from Washington.